Hi.
Hello.
Okay, so today we're gonna talk about a lot of stuff.
Okay.
Okay, so just like tell me stories that relate to these topics or like experiences you've had where you've dealt with these things
Okay.
and your views on them.
All right. Tell me what topic we're starting with.
This one's heavy.
Mm.
Okay, Doc. Death.
Oh my. Well, it's interesting that you should pick that topic or that it should come up right now because this is Mother's Day, and on Mother's Day, it's really not that much fun for me anymore because in 2003, um, Mother's Day was the last day that I saw my dad alive. And 5 days later, he was dead. And so between Mother's Day and May 17th, when he died, um, that period of time is kind of tough for me. So um, he was a really great guy, the nicest man I've ever known, and it was really hard to lose him. And then of course, my mom died in 2008, and I thought it was really interesting because it seemed like she had planned to be able to stick around about 5 years after he was gone, and that's what she did. And then, of course, your dad died in December of 2008. And you know more about that than I do. It was harder on you than it was on me.
Yeah.
So, I think that at some point in your life you will get to the place where death isn't as scary as it is most of your life, you know, because because I'm beginning to find out things don't work so well as you get older, and it gets harder just to do basic things, and um, at some point it's not going to be that bad to die. Next topic.
Okay. Um Jeez, we're gonna blow through these.
We'll see.
Fear.
Fear?
Fear.
Huh. Um, okay. Um, wow, what could I possibly say about fear? Um, okay. Well, I have a fear of roller coasters, and it's a dumb thing, except that it's not, because because people die on roller coasters all the time. It's just that most of those stories about that are sort of suppressed. You know, they talk about it very much, and I just think it's not that enjoyable for me. So why would I put myself in a position where I could die doing something that's not necessary and not even fun? So, um, but but as you know, your sister just loves roller coasters, right?
She does?
Oh yeah, she and her dad. Um, what we would do is when we would go to places that had roller coasters, she and her dad would get on the roller coasters, and I would stay with your brother, who also did not like roller coasters.
Right.
And so we, spent a lot of time just kind of waiting around on them because the lines for those things are very long, especially like Disney World. We're talking places like that. Okay? I see the sigh there. You're like, I'd like to find out for myself. I'm sorry about that.
It's chill.
Anyway, Um, so I didn't want Jared to always be afraid of roller coasters. So sometimes we would go, all four of us when we would get on, of course, two and two. But um, everybody knew I didn't want to go, so I would have to try to overcome that. And so um, my thing that I would tell myself is that I could tolerate anything for 3 minutes, and I didn't know of any roller coaster really that lasted longer than that. Okay, so I wasn't really going to have a great time. I was going to be throwing my hands up in the air and screaming and all of that stuff. I was holding on for dear life and counting because I'm going. I can do anything for 3 minutes, so I'm going to count. And then one day we were watching Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt. And in the show there was that thing about her turning the crank and she could do anything for 10 seconds, I think it was. Right? And it really reminded me of that. And I think that that's kind of the approach I recommend to dealing with fear. Is just like, okay, so I can get through this 10 seconds, 3 minutes, whatever period of time you can tolerate, and go try to move forward and do that. And then the other thing you have to think about is really, what do I have to lose? I mean, worst case scenario, right? I've made a fool of myself plenty of times, and that's a huge fear, embarrassing yourself in a crowd. But better than not ever trying anything, I think.
Yeah.
So, do you have any follow-up questions on that? I'm not sure. What else do you want?
Like, I don't know if it's the right word. Superficial fears versus like real fears.
Oh, okay.
So like things that you really shouldn't be afraid of but are, versus like things you should definitely be afraid of and that's reasonable.
Like driving in downtown St. Louis at night. You should definitely be afraid. Yeah. Yeah, there are plenty of situations where there are things you should truly be afraid of. I find it really interesting. I mean, people are afraid of someone laughing at them. What does it matter most of the time? Getting up to speak in public, that terrifies me, but I guess that's a kind of a good fear because I speak to groups of 10 every day. And it was one of the reasons I chose not to be a teacher, was because I didn't want to get up in front of a whole classroom full of kids to teach. But that's kind of what you do. You do what you need to do. I think I lost my train of thought there somewhere. Superficial fears. People have a lot of them. You need to talk to somebody about those so that you can find out if it's realistic or not. If you need to be worried about that, and maybe it's something you need to work on. Or if it's silly, and just get past it. Make yourself do it 10 seconds or 3 minutes at a time, whatever. Okay?
Okay. What about real fears?
Well,
like, give me an example.
Give you an example of a real fear?
Well, yeah, I mean, like, obviously there's, like, if your car is about to crash, of course, you're gonna fear that you're gonna die, right?
Right.
And you're afraid of that incoming crash in that moment, right? And that's real, but, like, I mean, like, when you're in a tornado, but you're in, like, a shelter or something, and you're afraid that something's gonna happen, not necessarily going to happen.
Well, living in Springfield, Missouri, being afraid of tornadoes is justified, you know?
Right.
Like one of Jared's really good friends, his house was completely demolished while he was in it. And I mean, he was truly affected by that. And I've worked with a lot of kids who come up here from the Joplin tornado, you know. That I don't think I can really explain the extent of the damage that kind of trauma can do, but you can get past it and keep going and not let it hold you back from most things. But you're not going to be sitting out there in the, you know, just looking at the weather when people tell you there's a possibility of tornadoes coming. If you've been in a situation like that.
Right.
Okay? That's realistic. So, yeah.
What about, like, something that isn't very likely to happen again, but has happened to you before, kind of ruins a lot of situations for you because you're afraid that that thing could happen again, but it's rare, like really rare.
Okay. Like I met somebody who ran into a train. Yeah, as a kid. And that person...
Wait.
I know it doesn't... Their brakes went out. The train was going by. Believe me, if they were there first and then the train came, whew, that's it. You're done.
Yeah,
okay?
but they ran
into the train. But she was flipped out of the car, onto the train, and then into the ditch beside the train.
Wait. She was flipped out of the car onto the train.
And then into the ditch. Yeah. Or, like I know a guy who was mauled by a bear. Yeah. When I was in high school. He disappeared for a while. Like, I didn't know what happened to this guy. And then he came back and he was like, so I was mauled by a bear. And it took him a while to recover from that. You know, I'm not thinking that he's going hunting ever again in his life, you know?
Well, where's he from? Because
this is, I lived in St. Joe at the time. So it's in Missouri.
So, yeah, he's probably going hunting again.
I don't know. Not everybody from Missouri hunts.
Not everybody.
You don't hunt.
I could.
But you don't want to.
I don't want to hurt those animals, no.
I know.
All right, so next topic. Is a big one. Aging.
Oh, boy.
Everyone's afraid of it. Everybody does it. It's natural. You have to go through it. Everyone's afraid of being old. And you, a 36-year-old woman.
With a few years experience, yes.
Yeah. As you're getting on in years, how do you feel about this?
Oh, wow, I have a lot to say on this topic. Okay. So, a lot of it has to do with your mindset. And that'll take you a really long way. Like, no one would ever have guessed how old I was for many years. Passed for way younger than I was.
Right.
But then when your body finally, something happens to it and you are not able to do everything you used to be able to do. You can't just bluff your way through that. That's not a mindset thing.
Right.
So, and that's hard to take. I love to dance, and I can't. So, because walking is hard. But there are still plenty of things that are good. I have a lot to say because I get truly, truly irritated. Our society is extremely superficial. So if somebody isn't young, beautiful, and able to do whatever you want them to do. Who needs them?
That's really true, but it's so messed up.
It is. Yes. And you know, what about the people who are young but don't fulfill the other two requirements? Maybe they never were beautiful, or they never were able to do everything everybody else could do. But that's off the topic of aging, so we'll get back to that. So,
I mean, you can feel free to just branch off anytime you need to. The longer the video, the better.
well, I'll tell you about something else that has to do with aging that's been on my mind recently. So, this time of year when people are graduating and stuff, so I have a lot of new people entering my field. And these people just came out of graduate school, and so they have a lot of new information that I don't necessarily have, even though I have to, you know, do continuing education kinds of things along the way. But, you know, they have fresher information than I have. And it seems like they think that trumps experience.
And it can't, though.
Well, they're two totally different things. And what you need is that you've got that perfect blend at some point of, you know, a lot and it's still relevant information, and you've had enough experience to really put that in practice. You know, but if there is a point at which that experience is great, but the terminology changes, and so it's more difficult to communicate about it with other people. So, or they think they find new things, it's not that new. Like one of the buzzwords is epigenetics, which is this idea that there's a chemical reaction that sets in motion whatever your genetic predisposition is for something, right? You have to have a trigger for it, and they have actually found then like the chemical reaction that puts that into play, that activates that trait.
So like if you've got like a genetic predisposition
for depression,
for like depression, gambling, or something like that,
right?
Like addiction,
right? But and so, you know, this is like so scientific, and that's great, and that's wonderful. But you know, we knew this all along. We just expressed it differently. We always used to talk about the same thing. Well, we didn't say epigenetics, but we would say that, you know, the environment has to provide some kind of trigger, basically, that would put you over the edge and cause you to go down that path. And I really don't think it's that different, but, you know, woo. Now we can show there's a scientific basis for it.
So like, here's a question. With things in your field, therapy and stuff, is there like ever a time where you have to learn new methods and like adapt because they've discovered new things, so you have to take a different approach because you have new information that helps you to better deal with these things?
Yes, what you're saying is mostly true. There is a time when that happens, except I don't think that I leave anything behind, like that's just useless information and I don't need that anymore. But I can definitely add to it and learn, hi there, and learn a little bit different way to use that information, try to help somebody in a different way than I might have thought of before.
Okay. Alright. And I guess we've kind of reached an end point with that topic, I guess.
Okay.
This one's big too. Greed.
Okay.
What are your thoughts on it? How would you define it? Do you think it's
It's prevalent in our society. It's ubiquitous. There we go.
ubiquitous?
Greed is when you want more than you need, especially when you're not willing to take into consideration the needs of others in order to get what you want.
Right.
So,
What are your thoughts?
it's hard not to be greedy because the number of things that we have is kind of how we define our success.
Right.
So it's hard to look at other people getting a nice house, a nice car, whatever, and not think, I want that too. But
Right.
you don't need it.
Yeah.
You can have a functional car and a house that's big enough. And then, sometimes we have to stop and think, really, all of this is a first world problem. We're not struggling just to survive. We don't have to find shelter for ourselves every night or to try and hunt something to eat, right?
Most of us, yeah.
Most of us, yes.
There are people in America who do have to deal with that. But,
But those of us who are thinking about things like, I want a nicer house or nicer car, not realizing the struggle that some people have.
I mean, I think it's especially an issue since, like, you need money to do, like, anything these
Yes.
days because the government and, like, capitalism has made it so that they can put a price on literally anything. So, like, just to go to some certain spot, like, a geographical
Yeah.
location, you have to pay a fine, like toll booths and stuff like that,
Right. Or to go on to the national parks, you gotta pay to get in.
just to
things
be
like
able
that.
to use a certain bridge so that
Right.
you can go from one place to another place. You have to pay money. It's ridiculous, and things are getting higher in price.
Mhm.
Like movies, they used to be cheaper than they are. Now they're like $14 a ticket. And it's ridiculous. But
Well, it's all relative, because the price was, think about inflation, is what I'm trying to say.
right, yeah.
Also, I think that Hollywood used to be subsidized somewhat by the government back when people really needed movies as their outlet, Don't get me started on that stuff. Back when, like Frank Capra, the guy who made It's a Wonderful Life, great guy, but he also was the person who did the Why We Fight films. He was training the troops basically during World War II.
Oh, like those like informational short films before movies.
They were made by Disney, and they had animated, like, showing how, showing where we were going and why we were fighting there, and all that stuff.
Oh, man.
It's really interesting. You should see those films sometime.
I've seen some of them.
Mhm.
Disney used to be so different.
Mm-hmm.
Have you seen the one where it's like Donald Duck is in Hitler's army or something?
Oh my.
It's crazy. It's just, but yeah, greed sucks.
Yes, it does.
It's not really a big way to like escape it, because it's kind of just human nature.
Mm-hmm. But I'm sort of terrified by what people are willing to do to get what they want, you know.
People kill.
Well, obviously that is true also.
People
but
kill
I'm
a
talking
lot
like
of people.
The average person doesn't, though. Doesn't kill somebody. But they might throw their friend under the bus to get a position they want, you know.
Yeah.
Not literally throw their friend under.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Right? Start a rumor about somebody just to get themselves in a higher position.
Yeah.
Just, you know, that happens in high school, that kind of stuff.
It happens all the time in high school.
Yes. But that's not really about greed. It's more about position. But that's kind of greedy, too. That's the same kind of thing. It's status.
You have
as opposed to money.
You have this greed for popularity,
Mm-hmm.
because in high school that's what matters, right?
Status.
If you're not popular, then what are you doing here? You know, and I think kind of even more so than just like the normal world, looks matter so much more in high school.
Oh, yes.
Because people will...
It's kind of like living in Hollywood while you're in high school.
It's like
so superficial. Yeah.
Judging a book by its cover,
Mm-hmm.
but like 20 times more extreme. People will take one glimpse at you. It takes 1 second. It takes 5 seconds to actually make an impression on someone. In high school, it takes 1 second, and they will hate you or like you based on how you look.
And they've never even really...
They never
met
even
you.
said a word to you, really.
Yeah.
They just took one look at you in the hall, and then you just...
And people don't realize how important your reputation is, because a lot of times they're going off of what they see, you know, superficially, physically, but sometimes it's off of reputation, and you can get a reputation for something that really has no merit, right?
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
Moving on.
This topic is probably going to be your favorite.
Is it? You're being sarcastic. Okay.
You've only ever had great experiences with this.
Oh?
Marriage. Tell us your experiences. Your definition. Well, not definition, but like the meaning of it to you. And your opinion on kind of when people should do that in their life and how they should know they should do that. Like what tells them in a relationship that it's time to do that.
Wow, we both sighed at the same time. It is not a fun topic. Okay. Who you choose as a long-term partner has more impact on your life than almost anything else you do. So you need to be more careful about that than most people are. Right?
Mm-hmm.
I think that you can meet someone that you eventually marry all the way back in high school, maybe slightly younger than that, but I don't think it's going to really work out unless you just are friends at that time and it doesn't become complicated until you're older, and then there can be intimacy and a commitment and all that stuff together. But I don't think that people should wait too long to get married, because having kids takes a lot of energy, and I would really like to see people have kids in a committed relationship and actually both be there for their kids. That would be nice.
Oh yeah.
Hardly happens anymore, and I'm not saying I'm better than anybody else.
You wouldn't.
Yeah.
You wouldn't happen to know anything about having a kid really late in life, would you?
I would, but the thing that's funny about that is that I actually knew that I wanted my kids at a young age, because I knew it would take a lot of energy, and then I went and did things differently, but anyway, marriage, you have to have somebody. You have to have somebody that you connect to and you can count on and really trust. If there are not that many people in the world you can trust anymore to stay with you and to invest in a relationship like that. But I don't think that life is as sweet without it. So it's important to have that.
Right.
How do you know when you can trust somebody like that? When you stop thinking about, but what if I met somebody better tomorrow? Because that's what people are always thinking about. I could meet somebody else. I don't know. I might meet somebody else. No. When you quit worrying about that and you just want to be with this person, that's the person you need to be with.
Did you ever feel like that with any of your marriages? Either of the two?
Well, in my first marriage, I loved him beyond all reason. And I mean that exactly as I said it. So, can't really... But, he didn't love in the same way. So...
What about with Dad?
And that was different because it was more practical. I had this idea that it's not hard for me to love people. So if I decided, love is a choice, if I decided I was going to love him, I would love him. And I did. It wasn't the same kind of head over heels, fall in love kind of thing.